Moving day, the Victorian house loomed before me, its weathered red brick facade a stark reminder of childhood summers spent with grandmother Chen. Now, at 28, I was returning not as a visitor, but as its owner. The late October wind whipped my hair across my face as I stood in the driveway, keys clutched tightly in my trembling hand. "Last box, Miss Chen," called out the moving guy, hefting a container labeled art supplies from his truck. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Thanks, and please, call me Sarah." My footsteps echoed through the empty foyer as I entered, the hardwood floors creaking beneath my feet. The house smelled of mothballs and furniture polish, grandmother's signature scent. She'd passed away 3 months ago, leaving me this place in her will. Perfect timing, really, considering my divorce from Marcus had left me desperate for somewhere to start fresh. Setting up my laptop on the kitchen counter, I began organizing my work files. As a freelance graphic designer, I could work from anywhere. And this house, despite its imposing size, felt like the perfect sanctuary. The morning light filtered through the stained glass windows, casting colorful shadows across my workspace. "Home sweet home," I muttered, more to fill the silence than anything else. The house responded with a subtle settling noise, like an old person sighing into a comfortable chair. As I unpacked boxes in the master bedroom, my phone buzzed. Mom's text read, "Settled in yet? Remember what we talked about, third bedroom stays locked." I rolled my eyes. Even after 20 years, they still treated me like I was 8. Like I couldn't handle the truth about what happened to Jenny. The memory of my sister's disappearance flickered through my mind, a Polaroid snapshot of a half-remembered nightmare. Jenny, 4 years older than me, vanishing without a trace during one of our summer stays here. The police investigation, the searches, the gradual acceptance that she was gone. I pushed the thoughts away, focusing instead on arranging my clothes in the antique dresser. The afternoon wore on as I systematically worked through each room, making the space my own. Family photos found their places on walls. Modern art pieces settled beside grandmother's ancient Chinese scrolls, and my collection of succulents brightened windowsills throughout the house. But my eyes kept drifting to the end of the upstairs hallway, where the third bedroom door remained firmly shut. The brass key that locked it hung in grandmother's study downstairs, though Mom had made me promise not to use it. "Some doors are better left closed," she'd said, her voice carrying that edge of finality I'd learned not to question. As evening approached, the house's shadows lengthened, and the autumn wind picked up outside. The branches of the old maple tree scraped against the windows, creating eerie patterns on the walls. I ordered takeout Chinese food from the same place grandmother used to frequent, and settled into her old reading chair in the living room. The house creaked and settled around me as I ate, each sound amplified in the growing darkness. It was different being here alone, without grandmother's gentle humming or the smell of her jasmine tea. Different, but not uncomfortable. Not yet. A loud thump from upstairs made me jump, nearly spilling my lo mein. Probably just a box settling, I told myself, though I couldn't remember leaving any boxes upstairs. The sound came again, followed by what seemed like footsteps light and quick, like a child running. My heart pounded as I set down my food and stood up. "Hello," I called out, my voice steady despite my rising pulse. Silence answered. Taking my phone as a flashlight, I climbed the stairs, each step careful and measured. The upstairs hallway was dark, the shadows deeper than they should have been. As I moved forward, the temperature seemed to drop several degrees. I checked each room methodically. Master bedroom, clear. Guest room, empty. Bathroom, nothing out of place. My eyes were drawn inevitably to the third bedroom door, its dark wood seeming to absorb my phone's light. As I stood there, staring at the door, a whisper of movement caught my attention. Not from behind the door, but in the reflection of its brass doorknob. For a split second, I could have sworn I saw Jenny's face, 12 years old forever, smiling at me. I blinked, and it was gone. Just my own distorted reflection remained, pale and wide-eyed in the curved brass. Back downstairs, I poured myself a generous glass of wine and tried to laugh it off. Houses make noise. Old houses especially. It was just my imagination, mixed with memories and moving day stress. Nothing more. But as I settled into bed that night, in grandmother's old room, with its faded wallpaper and antique furnishings, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The house felt different now, aware, somehow, as if by unlocking the front door this morning, I'd unlocked something else as well. Sleep came slowly, and with it, dreams of Jenny, of locked doors, and of the secrets this house had kept for 20 years. In the morning, I told myself, everything would feel normal. But even as I thought it, I knew this was just the beginning. Whispers in the walls. The first week in grandmother's house passed quietly enough, but as October deepened, so did my unease. It started with small things, the sound of footsteps, when I was alone, doors that were closed in the morning, despite being left open at night, and the persistent feeling of being watched. I was working on a logo design for a new client when I first heard the whispers. They came from inside the walls, a soft murmur like children sharing secrets. My cursor froze mid-motion as I listened, trying to convince myself it was just the heating system or the wind. But the whispers had a cadence, almost like words. "Hello," I called out, my voice sharp in the afternoon quiet. The whispers stopped immediately, leaving behind a silence that felt expectant, like held breath. That evening, I decided to explore the attic, telling myself it was about organizing, not investigating. The pull-down ladder creaked ominously as I climbed, my phone's flashlight beam cutting through decades of dust. The attic was a museum of family history, old trunks, forgotten furniture, and dozens of boxes. One box in particular caught my eye, labeled simply Photos 1990s. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, hundreds of photographs documented our family's life, including the summers before Jenny disappeared. There she was, her dark hair in pigtails, standing in front of the house. Another showed us together, me at 4 and her at 8, playing in the backyard. Then I found it, the last photo of Jenny ever taken. She was standing in front of the third bedroom door, her hand on the doorknob, looking back at the camera with an odd expression. Not quite a smile, not quite fear. The date stamp read July 15, 1993, 3 days before she vanished. A sudden crash from downstairs made me jump, scattering photos across the dusty floor. Heart pounding. I gathered them quickly and descended the ladder. The sound had come from the kitchen, where I found a picture frame had fallen from the wall. It lay face down on the floor, unbroken. When I picked it up, my blood ran cold. It was a family portrait from the summer of '93, but something was wrong. Jenny's face was blurred, as if someone had deliberately smudged the photograph. I distinctly remembered this picture being clear when I hung it 3 days ago. That night, the whispers returned. They seemed to follow me from room to room, always just quiet enough that I couldn't make out the words. I tried drowning them out with music, then television, but they persisted beneath every other sound. At midnight, my phone rang, Mom's number lighting up the screen. "Sarah, are you awake?" Her voice was tense. I had a dream about Jenny. She was trying to tell me something about the house. "Mom, I'm fine," I lied, watching shadows dance across my bedroom wall. "The house is fine. Have you been hearing things?" She pressed. "Your grandmother used to talk about voices in the walls before she started keeping that room locked." "What room?" I asked, though I knew perfectly well which one she meant. "Sarah, promise me again. Promise you won't try to open it." After hanging up, I lay in bed, listening to the house's nocturnal symphony. The whispers had changed, becoming more distinct. One voice in particular stood out, young, female, Familiar. Sarah, remember, I sat bolt upright. That was Jenny's voice. I'd stake my life on it, running on instinct. I grabbed my phone and opened the voice recorder app. For several minutes, there was nothing but normal house sounds. Then, remember, the game. My hands shook as I played it back. The voice was clear as day, preserved in digital clarity, my sister's voice, unchanged by 20 years. Hide and seek. That's what we were playing the day she disappeared. She was hiding, and I was supposed to find her. But I never did. Nobody did. The next morning, I found tiny handprints in the dust on the third-floor hallway mirror. They led toward the locked bedroom, growing fainter with each print until they vanished at the door. Below them, written in the dust with a child's finger, were 2 words: still hiding. I called in sick to my client meetings and spent the day researching the house's history. Grandmother had bought it in 1985, but before that, the records showed a pattern. Every 20 years or so, someone disappeared. Usually a child. Usually during a game of hide and seek. As night fell, the whispers grew louder. They seemed to emanate from the locked bedroom, a chorus of young voices with Jenny's among them. I sat in the hallway, back pressed against the wall opposite the door, listening. Come play with us. Sarah. Find us. We're all hiding. My phone buzzed, another text from Mom. Having bad feelings. Please call me. I started to reply. But movement caught my eye. Under the locked door, shadows shifted like small feet pacing. A soft giggle echoed through the hallway, Jenny's laugh, exactly as I remembered it. Ready or not, whispered a chorus of voices, here you come. The brass doorknob began to turn slowly, though I knew it was locked. Knew the key still hung in grandmother's study downstairs. Knew some doors were better left closed. But as I watched, frozen in place, the door began to open anyway. The door creaked open on its own, revealing nothing but darkness beyond. My heart hammered against my ribs as I sat frozen in the hallway, phone clutched uselessly in my trembling hand. But instead of the horror I expected, a warm, familiar scent drifted out, jasmine tea and grandmother's perfume. Sarah, Jenny's voice called from the darkness. Don't you want to know? Fighting against every survival instinct, I stood up. 20 years of questions demanded answers. Before I could step forward, my phone buzzed violently, Mom calling again. The door slammed shut with a force that shook the walls. I ran downstairs to grandmother's study, my footsteps echoing through the house. The brass key still hung on its hook, tarnished and heavy with secrets. As I reached for it, my phone rang again. This time, I answered. Sarah, listen to me. Mom's voice was frantic. Your grandmother left me a letter. She told me what really happened, what that room does. Don't. The call cut off abruptly, leaving me in silence. The key felt cold in my palm, almost vibrating with potential. Upstairs, the whispers had returned, a symphony of children's voices with Jenny's rising above them all. Remember the rules, Sarah. You have to find us before dark. My phone's screen lit up with a text from Mom. Getting in car now. Do pen take do war. 2 hours away, but I knew I couldn't wait. The sun was already setting, painting the hallway in shades of amber and shadow. Back upstairs, I stood before the door, key in hand. The brass doorknob reflected my face, distorted and pale. Behind me, in the reflection, I saw them, children from different eras, dressed in clothes from across the decades. Jenny stood among them, still 12, still wearing the blue dress from that last summer day. You have to follow the rules, she said, her voice clearer now. Hide and seek has rules. My hand shook as I inserted the key. What rules? Count to 20, eyes closed. No peeking. The other children chanted with her, their voices rising and falling like waves. Find us before dark, or stay and play forever. The key turned with a sound like distant thunder. The door swung open, revealing not a bedroom, but a vast, shadowy space that seemed to stretch forever. Furniture and toys from different periods, floated in the gloom like islands in a dark sea. Ready or not, Jenny's voice echoed from within. I checked my phone, 6:45 p.m. Sunset was at 7:12. 27 minutes to find them all, to find her. Taking a deep breath, I closed my eyes and began to count. 1, 2, 3. The whispers turned to giggles as small feet scampered past me into the darkness. 18, 19, 20. I opened my eyes and stepped through the doorway. The floor felt solid despite the void beneath it. My phone's flashlight illuminated small circles of reality, a rocking horse from the 1950s, a PlayStation from the 1990s, a tablet computer that must have been recent. "Marco," I called out, remembering our childhood games. "Polo," came the response. Multiple voices from different directions. I moved deeper into the space, checking behind floating furniture and inside hovering cabinets. In each hiding spot, I found traces: a hair ribbon from 1967, an action figure from 1985, a charm bracelet from 2002. Each item belonged to a missing child. My phone showed 700 p.m., 12 minutes left. I found the first child behind a floating armchair, a boy in overalls from the 1940s. He became solid as my light touched him, then faded away with a peaceful smile. The second was under a desk, a girl from the 1970s who thanked me before dissolving into light. 7 minutes. 3 more children found, each from different decades, each disappearing with looks of relief. But no Jenny. 4 minutes. Running out of time. "Sarah," Jenny's voice sang from somewhere in the darkness. "Remember where I always hid?" Then it hit me, our favorite hiding spot. During every game of hide and seek, Jenny would hide in the same place, the old wardrobe that used to stand in this room. The one grandmother had moved to the attic after Jenny disappeared. I spun around, flashlight beam cutting through shadows, and there it was, the wardrobe, floating like a wooden island in the void. My phone showed 7:10 p.m. 2 minutes. I ran to the wardrobe, yanking open its doors. Jenny sat inside, knees pulled up to her chest, exactly as she had 20 years ago. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "You found me," she whispered. "I'm sorry it took so long," I replied, reaching for her hand. 7:11 p.m. As our fingers touched, the void around us began to collapse. Jenny's form grew solid as she stepped out of the wardrobe. Behind us, the door to the third bedroom was closing. We ran, hand in hand, crossing the threshold just as my phone displayed 7:12 p.m. The door slammed shut behind us with a finality that shook the house to its foundations. Jenny stood beside me in the hallway, no longer 12 but 30, 2 the age she should have been. She was solid, real, alive. 20 years of aging had happened in an instant. We heard Mom's car in the driveway, her door slamming as she rushed toward the house. "Ready to play a new game?" Jenny asked, squeezing my hand. I squeezed back, feeling the warmth of her palm against mine. "What's this one called?" She smiled, the same smile I remembered, now on a woman's face. "Living." Behind the door, Mom burst through the front door, just as Jenny and I reached the bottom of the stairs. Her footsteps thundered through the foyer, then stopped abruptly. The letter from grandmother trembled in her hand as she stared at us, or more specifically, at Jenny. "Oh my God," she whispered, stumbling backward until she hit the wall. "It's really you." Jenny stepped forward, now a grown woman with our mother's height and our father's eyes. "Hi, Mom." The reunion that followed was a blur of tears, embraces, and broken questions. We ended up in the kitchen, where Mom's hands shook so badly she could barely pour the tea. The letter lay unopened on the table between us, grandmother's precise handwriting stark against the cream envelope. "I tried to stop you," Mom said, looking at me. "When I read what your grandmother wrote, Pooh." She pushed the letter toward us. "You should both see this." Jenny's fingers trembled as she opened the envelope. Her voice, now mature but still carrying echoes of the girl I remembered. "Read aloud, my dearest daughter. By the time you read this, I'll be gone, and Sarah will be in the house." I've carried this burden for too long. And now I must confess, the house has always had its own rules, its own hunger. It takes children who play hide and seek within its walls, keeping them in a place beyond time. I discovered this too late to save Jenny, but I learned to contain it to that one room. The door is a gateway. Those taken can only be found by a seeker who truly remembers them, and only before sunset on the day the door is opened. I tried 17 times to find Jenny, but I couldn't reach her. A grandmother's love wasn't enough. It had to be a sister's memory. Sarah was too young then, but now she might succeed where I failed. But warn her the house will try to keep them both. All my love. Mother. The kitchen fell silent except for the tick of the old clock on the wall. Outside, darkness had fully settled. But something about the night felt different now, less threatening, more like a blanket wrapped around our reconciliation. There's more, Jenny said quietly, turning the page. A list of names. Dates going back to 1920. She spread the papers on the table, dozens of children, all taken by the house, all still waiting to be found. Mom's teacup clattered against its saucer. You can't be thinking. We have to. I interrupted, meeting Jenny's eyes. We're the only ones who know how. But you could get trapped, Mom protested. Both of you. Jenny reached across the table and took my hand. We won't. We know the rules now. And we have something they didn't. We know what's behind the door. That night, we planned. The house seemed to listen, its familiar creaks and groans now feeling less menacing and more expectant. We would need help, official stories, for when the missing children returned, resources to help them adjust to their lost years. Some will age like I did, Jenny explained. Others might choose to stay young. The room. It gives you a choice at the moment you're found. As midnight approached, Mom reluctantly agreed to return home and begin making arrangements. We would need her on the outside, preparing for what was to come. She hugged Jenny for a full 5 minutes before leaving, as if afraid her daughter might disappear again. Once alone, Jenny and I walked through the house, relearning each other. She told me about the years behind the door, how time moved differently there, how the children formed their own small society, waiting and watching the real world through mirrors and windows. We never aged, she said, but we learned. We grew in other ways. Some of us have been waiting for over a century to be found. We stopped outside the third bedroom. The door looked different now, more like a portal than a barrier. The brass doorknob gleamed in the hallway light. Tomorrow, I said. We'll start tomorrow. Jenny nodded, but her expression was troubled. Sarah, there's something else you need to know. Something grandmother didn't put in her letter. She touched the door lightly. The house. It's not just taking children randomly. It's protecting them. Every child it took was in danger of abuse, neglect, worse. It chose us because it thought we needed saving. Did we? She met my eyes. Dad wasn't who we thought he was. The summer I disappeared, he was changing, getting darker. Grandmother saw it. The house saw it. That's why it took me. The revelation hung between us like smoke. Memories shifted, reformed, showed new shadows I'd been too young to understand. Tomorrow, Jenny repeated, her hand finding mine. We have a lot of work to do. We slept in my room that night, like we used to during thunderstorms. As I drifted off, I heard the whispers again, but now I recognized them for what they were. Not threats, but pleas. Not haunting, but hoping. Behind the door, children were waiting to be found. Tomorrow, we would begin bringing them home. But first, we had to make sure we could keep them safe in the world we'd be bringing them back to. After all, some doors are locked for a reason, and some are waiting to be opened at exactly the right time. The truth beneath, morning arrived with a purpose. Jenny and I sat at grandmother's desk, surrounded by her journals dating back decades. Each leather-bound volume contained meticulous notes about the house, the door, and the children it had taken. But it was the oldest journal, dated 1920, that held the answers we'd been seeking. "Listen to this," Jenny said, her finger tracing the faded handwriting. "The house was built by Elizabeth Blackwood, our great-great-grandmother. She was a suffragist who used it as a safe house for children escaping abusive situations." She turned the page carefully. But in 1919, something changed. I leaned closer, reading over her shoulder. "The walls have begun to whisper. The children say the house speaks to them, shows them places to hide where no one can find them. Today, little Mary Collins disappeared during hide and seek. The police searched everywhere, but I know the house has her, and perhaps that's for the best, given what her father intended." "Grandmother knew," I whispered. "She knew all along that the house was protecting children." Jenny nodded, pulling out another journal. "But there's more. The house doesn't just choose randomly. Look at this list. Every child taken had something in common. They all had some kind of psychic sensitivity. They could hear the house, feel its intentions." "Like you could," I said, remembering how Jenny always seemed to know things she shouldn't have known. "Like we both could," she corrected. "You just blocked it out after I disappeared. But now," she gestured around us, and I realized I could feel it, the house's consciousness, a gentle pressure at the edges of my awareness. The morning light shifted, casting shadows across the desk. Among grandmother's papers, a photograph caught my attention. Dad as a young man, standing with a group of others. The caption read, "Paranormal Research Group, 1985. He knew." Jenny's voice was tight. "That's why he moved us here. He was studying the house, studying us. Those business trips he took. He was meeting with others who wanted to harvest this power." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. That's why grandmother took us in after Mom left him. She was protecting us. And when she couldn't protect me anymore, the house did. Jenny's hand found mine. "But now we have a bigger problem. Dad's group is still out there. I've seen them watching the house." As if in response, a floorboard creaked upstairs. We shared a look and hurried to the third floor. The door to the bedroom was vibrating slightly, its brass knob glowing with a faint blue light. "They're warning us," Jenny said, placing her hand on the door. "The children behind the door, they can see things we can't. Something's coming." My phone buzzed a text from Mom. "Dade knows Jenny's back. He's coming." We had less time than we thought. Racing back to grandmother's study, we began gathering the journals. These weren't just records, they were instructions, a grimoire of sorts for the house's power. Jenny pulled up a floorboard, revealing a hidden compartment filled with more papers. "Grandmother left us everything we need," she said, pulling out a leather-bound book different from the others. "This is Elizabeth Blackwood's original diary. The house's power isn't just about hiding children, it's about protecting them. And it can do more. Much more." Outside, a car door slammed. Through the window, I saw Dad stepping out of a black SUV. He wasn't alone. "Sarah." Jenny grabbed my arm, her eyes intense. "Do you trust me?" I nodded without hesitation. "Then it's time to play hide and seek again. But this time, we're changing the rules." She pulled me toward the stairs, diary clutched to her chest. Above us, the door began to hum, its sound resonating through the house like a tuning fork. "The house doesn't just take children," Jenny explained as we ran. "It learns from everyone who enters. For a century, it's been gathering power, knowledge, abilities. Elizabeth Blackwood didn't just build a safe house, she built a fortress." We reached the third floor as the front door burst open below. Dad's voice carried up the stairs, familiar yet chilling. "Girls, Daddy's home." Jenny opened the door to the third bedroom, but instead of darkness, golden light spilled out. The space beyond had transformed, no longer a void, but a vast library, its walls lined with mirrors showing different times, different places. "You were right," I said, understanding finally clicking into place. The house isn't haunted. It's awakening. Footsteps on the stairs, multiple sets. Jenny grabbed my hand. Her adult face set with determination, but her eyes showing a flash of that 12-year-old girl I'd lost so long ago. Ready to learn what this place can really do. Behind us, Dad reached the top of the stairs, flanked by men in dark suits. His face was older than I remembered, harder, but his smile was the same one from my nightmares. "There are my girls," he said, spreading his arms. "Don't you want to help your father change the world?" Jenny squeezed my hand. "We already are," she said. "Just not your way." We stepped backward through the doorway together, into the light. The house hummed around us, no longer hiding its power but embracing it. And as the door began to close, I saw Dad's smile fade, replaced by something that looked almost like fear. He had come to claim the house's power. He was about to learn that the house had other plans. And so did we. Echoes, the library beyond the door, became our battlefield. Mirrors lined every wall, each one a window into different times, different lives. Dad and his men poured through the doorway after us, their footsteps echoing across marble floors that stretched impossibly far. "Oh, impressive, isn't it?" Jenny's voice carried power I'd never heard before. A century of accumulated knowledge, power, and protection. Elizabeth Blackwood didn't just build a hiding place, she created a sanctuary that learns, grows, and evolves. Dad's smile turned predatory, which is exactly why we need to study it. Think of what we could do with this power. Like you studied us, I stepped forward, feeling the house's energy coursing through me. We know what you really wanted. The house showed us everything. Around us, the mirrors flickered to life. Each one displayed a different scene: Dad in his younger days, conducting experiments on children with abilities. The paranormal research group that was really a front for something much darker. The careful plans he'd made for Jenny and me before grandmother intervened. "You don't understand," he protested, but his confidence was cracking. "These abilities could change the world." "They already have," Jenny replied. She opened Elizabeth's diary, its pages glowing with a soft light. "But not for you." The children began emerging from the mirrors, dozens of them, from different eras, all wearing the same determined expression. They formed a circle around us, their combined presence making the air thick with power. "You see, Dad," I said, "the house doesn't just protect children. It learns from them. Every child who came here added something new, their strength, their knowledge, their unique gifts. And now it's time to send it back into the world," Jenny finished. She began reading from the diary, her voice mixing with the children's in a growing chorus. The mirrors vibrated, their surfaces rippling like water. Dad's men raised their weapons, but the guns turned to dust in their hands. "Stop this!" Dad commanded, but his voice held no power here. The house responded with a deep resonance that shook everything. The children's voices grew louder, and I felt memories flooding back, not just mine, but everyone's. Every child who had ever hidden here, every moment of fear turned to safety, every lesson learned in this timeless space. The house isn't a prison, I realized aloud. It's a school, and we've all graduated. Light erupted from every mirror, enveloping us in a golden glow. I saw Dad and his men try to retreat, but the door had vanished. They were trapped in the space between moments, forced to witness what they had tried to destroy. Jenny read the final words from the diary. "Let what was hidden now be revealed. Let what was broken now be healed." The transformation was beautiful and terrible to witness. The library began to fold in on itself, the mirrors merging into a single point of light. Each child stepped forward, making a choice to return to their own time, to emerge in the present, or to become part of the house's eternal guardianship. "Your turn," Jenny said softly, taking my hand. I looked at Dad, now on his knees, all his schemes crumbling around him. "What about them?" "They'll be dealt with," said a voice, and grandmother stepped out of the last remaining mirror. Not as I'd last seen her, but as she must have been in her prime, powerful, resolute, wise. The house has its own justice. Dad and his men vanished into the light, their fate sealed by the very power they had tried to exploit. I knew they would face their own kind of timeless consequence, trapped in the spaces between mirrors, until they understood the true meaning of protection. The light began to fade, leaving us in a transformed version of the third bedroom. The door remained, but now it was one of many, each leading to a different sanctuary around the world. The house had replicated itself, creating a network of safe spaces for children who needed them. "It's done," Jenny said, closing the diary. "The house has evolved. No more hiding now, it can actively protect." Grandmother smiled. "And it has 2 new guardians." I looked at Jenny, understanding dawning. "Oos," she nodded. "Someone needs to guide the next generation. Teach them to use their gifts responsibly. Help them understand that being different isn't something to fear." "And Mom, I's already setting up the foundation," Grandmother said. "Officially, it's a network of homes for at-risk youth. Unofficially, oh." She gestured to the doors. The house settled around us with a satisfied sigh. Through the windows, I could see the sun rising on a new day. The children who had chosen to return to the present were already disappearing into the dawn, ready to begin their new lives. "What do you say, little sister?" Jenny asked. "Ready to change some lives?" I took her hand, feeling the house's power flowing between us, no longer frightening but familiar, comforting. "Right, I say, let's play hide and seek." The doors stood ready, each one leading to a child who needed us. Behind us, the original door remained, now marked with Elizabeth Blackwood's symbol, a key wrapped in vines. A reminder that sometimes the best way to protect something is to share it with those who deserve it most. And somewhere, in the echoes of the house, I heard children laughing, not in fear, but in joy, not hiding from darkness, but seeking light. The game had changed, but it would never truly end, and that was exactly as it should be.